guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my annual Bookish Academy Awards, and this is a tag that essentially repurposes all of the beloved and well-known categories for the Academy Awards and kind of turns them into book categories. I love to do this every single year, reflecting back on my previous year's reading and give out awards to basically all of my favorite books from the last year. In general, I really try not to repeat books so I can chat about as many books as possible. Particularly for 2020, my reading year was just wild. I love so many things that this was actually very hard to narrow down. Of course, I will have the original creator and video linked down below. But before we dive into the questions themselves, I first want to chat about this video's sponsor, the Great Courses Plus. I have been using this service, the Great Courses Plus, now for about 5 months, and honestly, I really love it. If you're not familiar, the Great Courses Plus is a subscription on-demand video platform that has essentially over 11,000 different lectures across a variety of different topics, from history to math to science. All of these lectures are put together either by top professors from across the country from various universities like Harvard, or accredited professionals from institutions like the Smithsonian. They're like in-depth views into certain topics or interests. Particularly, as I mentioned, I have really been loving their history lectures. They have a huge range of things to select from really broad, like historical topic overviews to really specific individual focused lectures that really allows you to kind of get that college experience again from the comfort of your own home. I was actually a history major in college, so I have really been missing the history lectures and just learning. I love history documentaries and anything I can get my hands on, and the Great Courses Plus is just awesome. Continue to expand my own knowledge in history. I've previously taken a course on great women and intellectuals before the 1400s, kind of focusing on different warriors and queens, and each episode and lecture was kind of an in-depth overview of one specific woman. From there, I'm actually about to start a more broader topic. I really want to get into learning more about the Roman Empire. I feel like my personal knowledge on like ancient Roman and Greek history is a little lacking, so that's something I want to work on. They have a lot of really cool Roman courses, so I have quite a few to pick from. So I'm starting with kind of like a broad overview, but there are some like more focused, specific individual ones as well that I'm really interested in. But again, they have topics outside of history, from science to math. So if there's anything that you're kind of wanting to learn more about and kind of have that lecture setting again, it's a really great service to check out. I of course do have an offer code for you guys. If you go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/peruse project, you can get a free trial to their subscription. I'll also leave a link to that down below. A big shout out to them for partnering with me for this video, but without further ado, let's dive into the Bookish Academy Awards. So again, these are classic categories from the Academy Awards, and right off the bat, we are starting with two really big ones: Best Actor and Best Actress, or favorite male or female protagonist. So for male protagonist, I have to go with Fitz from the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. I read a lot of Robin Hobb last year, and if I'm being honest, Robin Hobb's world and characters are some of my favorite. I don't think I have felt more deeply for a cast of characters than I have while reading Robin Hobb's books, and I feel like if I didn't pick Fitz for this particular category, I would be lying to myself. The journey you go on with Fitz throughout the Farseer trilogy, I mean, you literally follow him from childhood to adulthood on his traumatic journey through his life. This is the first trilogy within Robin Hobb's world, and again, we follow Fitz, who is the illegitimate son to a king, and you basically follow him as he grows up within the castle keep and has to learn to walk the line between individual desire and duty. And he's basically taught to be an assassin and a tool for the crown, and he basically struggles with the responsibility of protecting everyone or pursuing his own personal love and interests. It's a journey of a story. Fitz will like live with you forever, and I'm going to be encountering more books with Fitz in the future, so me and Fitz have a history. He's definitely my favorite male character I've encountered this year. I love Fitz. And then from there we have favorite female character. And if you would have said I would have picked this character after just reading the first book, I would have said no way. But here we are. I have Malta from the Live Ship Trader trilogy, another Robin Hobb story. I can't say enough good things about her character work, but if you have read this series, you know the journey you go on with the character Malta. Oh my goodness. You basically start the series despising Malta. She's a child, she's so frustrating, but then you also see her kind of grow up into her own power, and it's the most fascinating and well done character arc that was just meticulously done over 3 books. Nothing was rushed. Oh my goodness, you will read this series and have strong feelings for Malta beginning to end, whether that is frustration and anger, dismay, to just being utterly charmed by her as well. Malta, Malta, Malta. Malta. The next category is Best Cinematography, otherwise known as Best Plot Twist. For this, I'm gonna go with Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I've talked a lot about this series. This is the first book to a new YA urban fantasy story, and I literally have a reading vlog on my channel saying this YA fantasy book blew my mind because the pacing and just the twists and turns of this story just kept me guessing from beginning to end. This shocked me when I got to the last chapter. It was so captivating and just so well done. This basically follows our main character Bree, who jumps at the chance to attend a very prestigious, like, accelerated high school program on the UNC campus. She's excited to leave home to escape the pain of her mother's death, as well as step away from her father, as she's not really ready to confront those emotions and pain. However, when she arrives on the UNC campus, her first night there, she witnesses a magical attack, and she basically discovers that there's a secret society on campus dedicated to destroying monsters that plague humankind, and this secret society is kind of centered around Arthurian legends, and she decides that she's going to try to join this society to use its power to kind of uncover the secrets behind her mother's passing, as she feels like there's something more going on there. This is truly about a young girl like trying to do her homework, go to class, have a bit of romance, but also like partake in a magical competition, training, learning about secrets, and kind of just like navigating life. It is so exceptionally done. It also puts so many spins on the Arthurian legend and expectations in terms of fantasy tropes, and in general, Bree is just such a fantastic main character. You will love this from beginning to end, and when I say it will shock you, I promise it will shock you. Next category is Best Costume Design or Best Book Cover from this year. I decided to select The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. I mean, this whole series has stunning covers, but this one especially, I feel like, just sings out to me. The colors, the shininess, the spine, and also just like a beautiful concluding novel to one of my favorite fantasy series out there. Like, this was gold. The cover is gold. 10 out of 10. Like, read it for its beauty because the pages are even better than the aesthetics on the outside. A dark, political driven, Middle Eastern inspired fantasy story that will keep you crying, if I'm being honest. All right, next book I have in this award ceremony twice because I couldn't not select it for two different categories because it was just too good. The first category it is one in is Best Side Character or Sidekick, and I should actually say it's the sequel, which I also read last year, where I feel like this character particularly shines. But that is Wen from the Greenbone Saga. But if you're not familiar, the Greenbone Saga is an Asian-inspired crime urban fantasy story. It basically follows two major crime families as they vie for power within the city of K-Con. There's action, there's intrigue, it's incredibly violent, it'll keep you on the edge of your seat. It's a wild ride from beginning to end. One of my favorite characters within this entire series has to be Wen, and I feel like it's because Fonda Lee handles her character exceptionally well. I feel like in a lot of stories she would be kind of relegated to the background. She doesn't have access to the magic that's present in this world. She is the wife of a powerful man. And in general, I feel like a lot of authors would just kind of write her as a love interest, kind of put her to the side and not really give her a lot of agency. What Fonda Lee does with Wen's character is top notch. Not only does she give Wen one of the greatest character arcs and just storylines within this entire series, in my personal opinion, just as a character, I find her so amazing. I mean, Wen, her entire life has always been underestimated or kind of pushed to the side, given the fact that she's not able to kind of harness the magic or harness jade in this world. But because of that, Wen also recognizes her own power and is constantly always realizing where she herself can make a difference. She doesn't wait for permission. She constantly is kind of outmaneuvering people in ways that they wouldn't anticipate. And I love just watching throughout this entire series, like, subtly being the most powerful character. Like, there's obvious people throughout this series that like are aggressive fighters, like openly challenging people, but Wen behind the scenes is doing so much incredible work that people don't even realize that she's really doing. It's amazing. One of my favorite characters for sure. One of my favorite parts of this entire series, which is one of my favorite series, so had to give her a shout out. Next up, we have Best Original Screenplay, which is like most unique or interesting world. I decided to go with The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin because like the plot premise of this is truly just one of the most unique things I've ever encountered. And it's essentially the concept of this book is that cities can become alive. And at the beginning of the story, New York City is kind of in the beginning of this process, but something goes wrong. And then from there are individuals who kind of wake up as personifications of different neighborhoods and have the power of these different places, and they kind of have to work together to try to defeat an evil. It's so bizarre, but so interesting, and just the magic and the care and the charisma that N.K. Jemisin weaves within this tale is just unstoppable. This book is so weird, but it's also a love song to New York City in a way that I cannot express more. I mean, there's literally like weird floating monsters throughout the town, and I loved it so much. Definitely one of the most unique things I've ever read. Next category is Best Director, your favorite author that you encountered for the first time this year. I have two for this because I couldn't narrow it down. The first one is R.F. Kuang, who wrote the Poppy War series, which is a series I read from beginning to end in 2020 and loved so much. This is one of the most gruesome, heart-wrenching, just intoxicating stories I've ever picked up. It destroyed me from beginning to end, and it was just so excellent. Its use of history and magic just makes it unparalleled to so many stories I've encountered before. This is a grimdark fantasy story inspired by the Song Dynasty, the Opium Wars, and the Sino-Japanese War. And then I also have to give a shout out, of course, to my number one, Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb was an author I encountered really for the first time in 2020, and she fast became one of my favorite authors of all time. I've read 6 of her books now. I love her so much, and needless to say, I'm just excited about both of these authors, that I read them both, and if you haven't, read them. Though be prepared to be destroyed, because they will literally break your heart into a million pieces and laugh at you while they do it. Next question is Best Animated Feature, which is name a book that you feel would be adapted really well in an animated film or television show. And for this, I'm gonna go with The Girl Who Drank the Moon. This is one of the most beautiful, like bitter, sweet middle grade stories I've read in a while. I think going in, I anticipated it being just sweet, but it really weaves in a lot of like human sadness and like human suffering in a way that really adds such a richness to this tale. And this is basically a story of a town that's lived in very much in isolation, and every year they basically bring a young child to the woods to sacrifice to the evil witch. But the reality is the witch that does live in the swamp actually takes these children and finds new homes for them on the other side of the forest, as she doesn't really understand why they're being abandoned. But one day she accidentally feeds one of these children moonlight instead of starlight, and gives her magical power. So we now follow the child as she kind of grows up in the swamp with her grandmother, the witch, as she learns more about her magical powers. But all of this is also paralleled with this town, which is kind of controlled and ruled by fear, scared of this evil witch that is living beyond their borders, but in reality they're being controlled by like an unjust government. It's full of magic and adventure, but also has again a lot of commentary, kind of providing this sort of bittersweet tale that is just lovely and very, very beautiful. I listened to the audiobook of this when I read it for the first time, and it was incredibly immersive, and I do feel like this could be like a stunning animated movie, maybe in the style of Miyazaki. I don't know, but this is the one I would pick for that. All right, next category is Best Visual Effects or Best Combat written in a book, and we're back to Jade City by Fonda Lee. Fonda Lee literally knows martial arts, and that obviously shines in this series quite a bit because there is a lot of action, a lot of different types of combat. As an aspect of the story is individuals can wear jade, and it gives them kind of superhuman abilities in terms of strength and power, and how Fonda Lee is able to both describe and write that and also create some of the most heart-racing combat scenes between individuals is just next level. There are like duels and street fights. It's so good. It's like gritty and dark. I love it. I love Fonda Lee's writing. I love this series so much. The more I sit with it, the more I love it. But yeah, best combat for sure. All right, next category is Best Short Film or Documentary, which is just your favorite short book of the year. I did not read very many short books. I in general don't read very many short books. A lot of the books I read are quite long, but I did read The Silence of Bones by June Her, which is a historical thriller, and really enjoyed it. And it's also not very long. I actually read this in one day, so to me it's a huge page turner and one I would really recommend. This is set in the Joseon era in Korea, and we basically follow an indentured servant who works for like the police department there. And this is because during this time men can't like physically touch women that I think they're unmarried to or like outside of the family, so they need women assistants to help them investigate crime and even handle like dead bodies if they come up. And the story itself opens on the death of a young prominent girl within the area, and it basically opens up like larger questions and conspiracy. And our main character works under a detective that she has a lot of like admiration for, but when he becomes kind of a prime suspect within the murder itself, things are kind of turned upside down. This combines so many interesting things from historical elements, conversations of kind of a rise in political power of some individuals who want to repress certain elements of the culture like religion, as well as family, and then obviously having a murder and thriller at its heart. It's really hard to put down. It absolutely captivated me from beginning to end, and I loved it. Next up is Best Picture, which means Best Standalone Novel. I decided to go with The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is just one of the most wholesome, beautiful books I read last year, and it made me feel so happy and warm on the inside. I recommend this book to everyone. If you want to be happy, if you want to feel something, read this. But this is essentially a charming tale following our main character Linus, who is a caseworker in charge of magical youth. So he spends his day kind of checking out orphanages and making sure everything is tip-top shape. Linus would say that he is content with his life, but he maybe isn't so happy. He's kind of given up on love, he's kind of given up on friendship. Linus would also describe himself as someone who really thrives and rules, and he kind of lives his life by the book. Until one day he's given a very unusual case where he has to travel to an orphanage that is supposedly full of very dangerous magical children. There he meets Arthur, the caretaker, and a whole bunch of wonderful children that will just make your heart melt. It's all about found family. It has romance. Literally the most charming book I've read in a long time. I cried at least 6 times while reading it. A joy. And then the last category is Best Documentary. Name your favorite historical fiction or nonfiction novel. For this, I'm going to go with Becoming by Michelle Obama. I read her memoir last year and listened to it on audiobook and loved every second of it. When I say I was on the street bawling my eyes out trying to run errands, this book hit me right in the feels. It was just beautifully written, narrated by Michelle Obama. In general, I would say this really has gotten me interested in memoirs and created a personal goal of reading more of them throughout 2021. There's just this connection of hearing someone tell their own story. It's just beautiful, and I felt it was beautiful in Becoming. It was a book I so enjoyed, and I can't wait to read more memoirs later on throughout the rest of this year. Alrighty guys, that is the Bookish Academy Awards. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I'll have the original creator down below, as well as a link to this video sponsor. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!